All right, I'm going to go ahead and kick us off. Thank you for attending our webinar today. This is about Acumatica 2026 R1, and we're going to cover some of the new features. And the lens we're going to look through with this kind of talk track that we put together is we're not going to just go demo features for you today. We're actually going to talk through why these features matter. So if you're one of our current Acumatica customers, we're going to help you take this to the next level for your use cases and for your users. If you're coming to learn more about Acumatica, we want to show you some of the value of what the product does and how it can help you run your business more profitably. The great thing about Acumatica is they're always investing in new features and capabilities, especially with the Construction Edition. So that's what we're focused on today. And I'm Rob Griffin. I'm the founder of Dominate Solutions. Been in the ERP space almost a little over 25 years. And with me today is Aimee Morgan, a very accomplished accountant, CPA, and job cost expert in Acumatica. So one of the things we want to start out with is maybe the why behind some of these use cases. We see a lot of our customers and even prospects that we talk to lacking information. So they know in their head, or they just know because they know how to run the business. They know where they should be. They know where their jobs profitability lies. They know or what it should be. The challenge is they're not able to get that, always able to get that out of the solution. And with some of the features we picked out today, what it will do is it's going to enable your team, almost if they had the CFO sitting beside them. And that's what we want to demonstrate today. So with that, let's go ahead and dive right in. Aimee, do you want to go ahead and pull up Acumatica, and then we'll start with our first use case, our first feature here.
Great. So where we wanted to start is one of the new features that Acumatica has brought out. These are called 360-degree dashboards. These are more interactive and truthfully a really good overview of what a project status is. So there's a mixture here of specific widgets with key metrics that whether you're a PM or an accountant or an executive even that wants to review the status of a project, what its potential is from a revenue side or the cost side, you have lots of that data here at your fingertips. As you can see here, we'll drill into some of these widgets in just a moment. But you also have some charts and other items to look at as far as AR invoices and items like this here on the summary. And then you could also do a deeper dive into the specific financial subcontracts and then project management that you may be looking for as far as this project is concerned.
You know, and one of the things that we always hear and that we know is a focus for our construction customers we work with, it's always margin and it's always cost control. How are we doing? And being able to get this information, anybody that needs to know that in a construction firm that's using Acumatica, it's right here at their fingertips.
Exactly. So as you can see, to your point, you can see that we have a bit of underbilling. So this definitely is a project that we would want to encourage the project manager or whoever would be able to impact the billing to make sure that all of the percentage completes or expenses, depending on if this is a progress bill or a time and materials project, that you're able to get those items correctly entered into the project, accounted for, and then billed out so that that revenue can be realized. And so these views are designed to give you that visibility right away without having to go into different reports or different screens to see the same information.
Yeah, and even that project margin, like the 9.42% on this project. I mean, this is demo data, but let's say this project was really planned to be more in the 15% margin. It would be way off from that. So this project is probably something that would be considered almost completed. But before you ever get to that stage, using this tool from the onset helps shape the outcome of that project and not allow it to end up where the margins have got eroded and now we're looking in the rearview mirror.
So what I find is something that our very focused on is the cost side of these. So what we try and are concentrating on today is looking at some of these widgets as far as some of the backlog to that point, what needs to be brought in and what needs to be built out, where we could contain our costs. There's opportunities to control some of the spend. So looking at the cost projections would be a great way to analyze your budget by task, by cost type, to see, is there opportunities here? You know, obviously materials can be variable, they're fluctuating. Labor, you may have more control over, where you're substituting maybe lower dollar laborers versus your higher dollar and putting them on a project where they're maybe more efficient and can get more response out of the containment.
And you know, one of the values about this particular screen right here and the ability to do this, a lot of people do this in Excel. And
Yes.
so you're transferring information back and forth. It's not real time. Nobody else is going to be able to see it because it's not in the system. And once this is in there, then again, you know, the VP of operations or the CEO or the CFO can pop in and take a look and see how this is doing. And they don't need to ask anybody. I mean, it's right here. It gives,
You can look at, yeah, exactly, the line items. Exactly.
it gives the project manager all the tools that they need without, you know, going to 10 different places, pulling data out of Procore, pulling data out of, you know, estimating sheets, pulling data out of timesheets, or pulling data out of supplier invoices. There's no need to waste all that time, you know, doing all that activity. Yeah, and the status report really is a centerpiece, and I think that's where Acumatica is really trying to drive all of this, is to give that ultimate accountability, financial responsibility, and control, to drill all this into, here's one place you can go to look. And if something looks off, then where do we go from here to go see why that is? Because again, the alternative is you find this out 6 weeks later, now it's too late. Now there's nothing we can do about it.
One of the other items that we find can be helpful is also being able to look at unbilled revenue. So Acumatica now has a new unbilled project revenue aging report. And what this report does when you click the calculate button is that it simulates all the active projects and applies the billing rules by task to let you know what revenue is still unbilled, and point out again some areas where the project managers may be able to accelerate that billing, get all the I's dotted and T's crossed in order to make sure that they're able to generate that invoice and get that revenue in front of the customer and hopefully get paid.
How many times have we heard that story? You know, if you're a project manager, and of course it depends on the company, but we'll take this example that we hear a lot. If the project manager is charged with delivering efficient projects with cost control, what better tool to help see how we can drive revenue? Because if I'm a PM and I'm charged with, or I'm asked, hey Rob, how can you deliver this project faster? And we think we have a revenue shortfall coming. We need you to speed up this project, get these revenues out. This gives me a tool to be able to go analyze, what can I do?
So along those lines, talking about what you might be able to do, going back to this project status report, this also, earlier in a job, not necessarily a project like this that is pretty far along, but when you're looking at the time value of money and you're trying to collect and decide when you're going to do your spend on your materials, those purchase orders, things like that you need in order to fulfill the project. That can give you visibility in, do we buy now because we know what the price is now, we know we can lock in our margin, or do we wait? Again, right now there could be a more uncertainty on the material side than most people are comfortable with, and so they may want to lock in those prices now, get that material and hold it. But there also could be costs there if they don't have the storage space or what have you. So that gives you more visibility on what you have potentially coming down the pike to give both the finance side and the project side the tools that they need to make the right business decision for the individual project. And I think that's something that we've seen really brought up with a view like this, where you can see the costs, the revenues, what you're projecting.
For people who are evaluating Acumatica, we see this every day in demos and talking to prospects. If they're using something like QuickBooks or some type of legacy accounting or ERP solution, when they do those buyouts, that margin they're expecting to get on that savings, they know in their head what that buyout's going to do for them. But the system does not give them any clue of how that's actually going. So that all gets lost. And you're not able to really track that proposed, or not proposed, that margin that you're going to get, that uplift for your margin. That's one of the big benefits we see with this new feature, especially on the margin and the cost side, is you're able to really get visibility and see that it's there, even though inherently how it works and it's there. The system is able to tell you, here's how you're doing from a cost control standpoint. That to me is almost like having the CFO sitting right beside you, helping guide you, if you're a PM, to manage your projects more efficiently. That's worth a lot.
Also wanted to point out that this also tracks potential change orders. So those are not factored in here, but that can give visibility. If this project is some project that has potentially some high value change orders coming in, that also gives you visibility into some of these metrics can change based on that change order being approved and being incorporated into the project as well.
Well, that brings up a whole nother set of issues. I'm glad you mentioned that, because revenue is often left on the table with change orders that are not executed.
Yep.
And it's not because we don't want more revenue. It's not, the PM is not thinking that way. It gets lost in the minutia with all the manual processes because the system's not tracking that for them. Especially if they're not, Acumatica is, of course. But what I mean is if they're on a legacy product or QuickBooks, their tracking is Excel. If you're managing 3 or 4 large projects, that just gets lost. It can get lost. That is a great indicator right there, because again, if you go back to the scenario where you're charged with bringing in, accelerating the revenue, accelerating the project, those missing change orders or change orders that are in process, knowing that those are there and being able to have control over that, and that being able to be seen by anybody in the company to see how the project health, how this is doing, is extremely important.
So want to point out, this is not necessarily in this release. These have been around for a while, but Acumatica has created a couple of screens that project focus with the AP and AR side. So you're able to look at your AR and AP documents, so your unpaid invoices, what is coming in. And then you have your unpaid AP bills, so you would know what's going out, and you're able to look at that by project. So that also can give you visibility on top of the widgets here, just to make sure that a cash forecast perspective, that you're starting to look at all of the ins and outs could be potentially coming in or going out for a specific project. So help with visibility, flow forecasting, and those types of things.
And this is something that really seems like it should be table stakes on any system, but it's not. So any of the legacy systems, we already know that customers that are coming off of, they don't have these capabilities. They don't exist unless you're manually tracking all of this information. And then it's only as good as the last time you updated it. So it's hard to drive revenue and hard to control cost, especially on the AR side. If you're managing the projects and doing everything right, but if those customers are not paying on time and that AR is mounting up, then now you've got a revenue shortfall some point in the future, which is going to create problems all across the business.
One other item I want to touch on that impacts both the finance team and the project team are unreleased documents. So with 26R1, there's a new screen called the project audit, where you can select a specific project. You can put in dates if you want to, if that's required, and it will list out every unprocessed document that you have, no matter what it is. So in this case, we have unreleased AP bills, and then we have an unreleased change order. And the way we see this come up in our sometimes support calls, sometimes it's just anecdotally, there's data that the customers are expecting to see on a project. Where did my time go? Or why am I not seeing my revenue change? And more than likely, it's because an invoice hasn't been released or project transaction hasn't been released, and therefore those costs or revenues aren't hitting the project. This screen allows you to see exactly what could be impacting that. And again, everything is in one screen, no matter what type of document or transaction type it in. So I find that this will be a very useful screen for people who know that they are missing something on a project. They just don't know what. And we see this all the time. Sometimes support cases come in, I don't know what happened, my time isn't in here, it's not coming through. And then we look at the project transactions and it's unreleased, a balanced transaction versus a posted one.
The time savings on this, if you've got to stop your process, and then you've got to go to, say in your example, if you got to go to a support ticket, okay, now we just halted whatever it was we were working on. So if you're doing a end of month close, okay, now you're stopped. Now it's gone to a support ticket, and now you're waiting for a response to see what has to happen to clear the issue.
It always seems to be when you're under the gun that these types of things pop up. This is a good way to minimize that, to get it resolved.
Yeah. Now, so that's really looking at it from the month-end close, which is extremely important because, again, every process that happens from a ERP standpoint affects the entire business. So the shorter we can get those cycle times down, the better everything is going to be. What if I'm a project manager and I'm trying to figure out where I'm at and what am I missing? I may not know what I'm missing.
That's a great point, because this screen is also useful. So within Acumatica, you can now close projects, and if you have unposted transactions, it will give you an error message and tell you that you have unprocessed transactions. This screen will show you what those are specifically so you can drill into them and process them. So there definitely is a project impact, both on the visibility of expenses or revenues that you may be missing, but also when you want to close, because there could be some activities that are actual activities that aren't payroll related. They could be tasks that you've assigned to people that you're following up on that haven't been closed, that are specific to a project. So it just makes sure that everything that references a project has been fully processed, so you know that everything that has been expected is showing. And you're getting the right results when you're looking at your postmortem, if you will, what did we do on our margins? How did our costs come in? Do we over and under budget? Do we need to adjust those as we're bidding out future projects? Are these lessons learned that we can take into formulas and our processes when we're trying to bid and win these jobs? And information is critical for that, so that you know that you're covering your margins in a way that you expect.
Yeah, and it seems like that it's always on the AP side and the time entry side. That's where the missing data are not, what's being missed. What I'm trying to say, it's hard to track down AP because those supplier invoices can come in at any time, and if those go to the accounting department, if I'm a PM, I'm not going to see it until they get it in the system. The first step to get it in the system, that's not a released transaction, so it's not hitting my project budget. I don't know that it's there yet. So I see this as being extremely helpful in a lot of different ways, because I think some of the stuff sometimes starts maybe as an investigation. I'm looking for what do I don't know. What's out there that I'm not aware of yet that I need to be aware of. So I love this. I think this is I think it's a great feature. And I think kind of recap on how we just walk through these couple of features we've already talked about. To me, what it means to me is if I'm managing projects, it's given me all the tools to never have to leave the Acumatica screens. I don't have to go to Excel. I don't have to go to another system. I don't have to go any place, as long as I'm keeping everything up to date and I'm tracking everything here. And then that gives the ability to do the data is in the system. So now some of the other reports or data views or other things that would be useful for me to be able to help me better manage my projects. This is just going to be addition and value add to what I've already got available to do today. What about some of the Aimee? Just as a CPA, I know you look through the lens differently than I would, because I'm not a CPA. I'm not an accountant. But from that lens, what are some of the other insights that this would give to current customers, and then maybe some of the potentials that may be watching to try to learn more?
So one of the things that we somewhat touched on is monthly close. So in Acumatica, the close process is pretty straightforward. The financial periods are already configured, and we're closing the periods when we're ready, after we've done all of our adjustments, in order to move on and keep going with the accounting year. However, as we all know, you can't close periods if you have unprocessed transactions. So this also gives you that view of any documents that are accounting related that need to be managed. Either they need to be processed, possibly, especially if you're talking about pro formas, we see that a lot, where the pro forma invoice isn't ready to be turned into an AR invoice, but we need to close, so you can see those specific transactions and change the date, move that forward. So, we want to close May, or, June 10th. We'll just say that the close is running that long, and we have some pro formas out there for May. We may want to move those into a June date, so that way we can close May. They obviously have not processed in May, so it'd be appropriate to change that date, and then that you can close, and that all of your accounting and your invoicing, all of the downstream transactions will still be in sync. You can close with confidence, knowing that you've managed all the documents, the transactions that you need to.
Yeah, that's very important. I mean, again, it saves from so much investigative time, which, I mean, how long would that typically take? A day, days? Could it add a
It
week?
depends. Yeah, it truly is dependent on how the transactions are coming in and how they've been processed. Obviously, if you have third parties involved, if you're a GC or you're dealing with subs, things like that, you obviously can't always get the timely information that you need. So being able to make these adjustments and see where you are is invaluable.
Can we go back to let's go back to the project status report and just make sure there wasn't anything else there that we need to cover or talk about.
So we can drill into the some of the widgets if we'd like to. I don't know if anyone has questions or wants to know what any one of these specific tiles may be asking, or if we just want to run through them.
Yeah, why don't we just run through real quick what each of these tiles represent, because there's a lot of information here.
Right. Okay. Certainly. So what going top to bottom, left to right. So this is obviously telling us a percentage complete overall for the project. So it is looking at the latest cost projections and the margin to make sure that it's calculating how far along we are. So that kind of gives you a rough idea of how much more is left to bill. Then obviously that ties into the gross margin that's expected. And then looking at your expenses in relation to your revenues, that's telling you where you are today. So this project right now, more expenses than revenue. You can tell it's underbilled. So that's kind of reinforcing that we have some margin here that we expect we need to bill it. We're definitely at a point where that is coming clear. Even though this project is almost 80% done, we're more heavy on the cost side. So we need to do what we can to bring up that revenue. That would be what that widget is telling me.
If I was a project manager, that would be the number one thing I would be looking at every single week. I would be ahead of my leadership team with that, because I know that's what they're going to be asking me, and I want to be telling them before they ask. Here's where we are. Here's what we're doing to improve that metric.
Going down to the next row, this is just talking about our revenue. As you can see, we're projected to have 2 million. We're about 600,000 short of that right there. That's kind of a big sign. We're almost 70% billed. We have 30% more to do. We have money to bring in. And that's just reinforced with this underbilling and then the backlog on revenue. Going down to the cost side, of the mirror of what we're doing here, but opposite way. So we're looking at what we have budgeted and where we're at. So we're not sitting in a horrible position from a cost side. We just haven't billed the revenue. So what this is telling me is that this looks like we're staying within reason of what we expected to spend. Our issue here is we aren't getting the revenue that we're expecting. So we need to focus on that. And so this is giving you that visibility right here, one versus the other. And so that would tell me we've got, obviously we have some POs still coming in, but overall, this is where we need to focus, is getting these numbers and these metrics.
And the problem,
the right range.
And the problem here is if the company has 60, 100 open projects, and you've got the same pattern, then you've got a major cash flow problem. And it doesn't take a rocket scientist to know that. But if you get early warning and, the process, procedures, the training, the information's available at the lowest level in the organization to manage this, it's not getting managed by the leadership team. It's getting managed by the people, feet on the ground, that are doing the work to make sure these projects stay on track.
We talked about before that could be decisions on staffing, if depending on what the drivers are. In this case, it's not really cost related, like I said, on a specific project. But again, you have that visibility because it easily could be your costs are out of control versus just not being able to build that revenue yet. So this is insightful to tell you what corrective action you need to take in order to get this project to be the most positive it can be from a margin standpoint.
I wonder how that would change the dynamics in the weekly
review.
WIP meeting. If it would change the dynamics, rather than chasing problems, you're forecasting outcomes. It's not like, hey, how do we get this revenue in? It's like, hey, let's forecast where we are so we can start planning that next project, when we can pull these resources and shift them over to the next project to keep the revenue generation going and get these projects done faster. Uh, Great use case and a great tool for that. And, your use case for the audience may be different than what we're presenting here. We're just trying to give you some insights on what we see day to day and how we help customers try to drive their use case and their value. But if that's not your use case, give us a call and we'll be happy to walk you through how you could use this to help your operation, streamline that entire process. So that was one of the big changes. Now Acumatica does 2 releases per year. So this is the 26R1 is the release that comes out in the first half of the year. And then later this fall, there is going to be the 26R2 that's going to have an equal amount of new features. There's never a shortage of new features coming out in Acumatica.
And a lot of those are suggestions. They come about because of improvements that are suggested from people in the community, customers, people like us who are end users. And so they really are responsive to people are using the software and ways to make it better.
Yeah, and that's really what makes this such a great ecosystem, is because if you're engaged, and your engagement can be at different levels, but it can be on the Acumatica portal, which is the community site. You can engage that way. You can put in product suggestions. You can vote on other people's product suggestions. If you put a product suggestion in, that can be upvoted by anybody in the world, that's on that portal. And they've been delivering, I'm not going to get the number exactly right. I think it's roughly about 70 features were suggested by customers the last couple of go-arounds. So I may be off a little bit on the number, but I know it's close because I've asked this question every year while at Summit, or they actually say that metric every year as well. So the engagement is really important here because the product is improved. It's just not Acumatica in a dark room, closed doors, building a product. They're soliciting that customer feedback on, things that could be better, or things that could be added, or things that could be improved. All right. Anything else, Aimee, that you've got over there? I know there's a few things I'm going to show. We're going to switch, but is there anything else that you've got that you want to show?
That is what I prepare for today.
Okay. All right. Let's see if I can switch over here and show a couple of things. Well, of course, the buzzword of buzzwords right now is AI. Everything is got to have AI in it. And Acumatica has really done a great job of incorporating AI at multiple levels in the product. One of the levels is the AI assistant. So you can see that's right up here. And when I click on that, it opens up this prompt. And this is only one of the ways you can use AI in Acumatica. What I did here was, on the prompt, I did something really simple. You can get more complex than this. But I said, what projects have risk factors affecting financial performance? So with the demo data, it came back and it told me there are 15 active projects with financial risk factors. And so it's given me that in this little table here. I can kind of scroll through there and see. And it's the margin and profit, or what's putting that in those categories. And then it also flagged there was some internal expense tracking projects, which we have a lot of customers that benefit by using those because it really helps them track their internal projects as well. So I picked up those. And then it gave me some of the why. So I've got margin erosion, got negative cash flow, below budgeted margin, no cost budget defined. Okay, why would projects have no cost budget? So that sounds like maybe it wasn't set up properly or forgotten, or maybe, there are some projects where it's going to be a 2-day project you're not necessarily going to go do all the bells and whistles on the project. I can understand that. But here we've got 13 projects that have no cost budget. So that's a problem. So that means maybe we need to do some training on the folks who are setting up these projects. And it's given me a graph, and I could keep drilling into, it's got some suggestions here of, what else we could do with this. But again, it's probably the easiest to use, again, right off the top menu bar up here. And then from there, we also have the ability to get individual project analysis right inside the project. And I'll just show you a peek behind the scenes of how we set that up. This is not a project, of course. This is a case. But behind the scenes, we can go set that up. And then when this runs, the summary that it provides, in this case, it would actually show that inside the project on one of the tabs on the project. So that, again, provides huge value for the user in Acumatica, and you don't need to go take any analysis outside of Acumatica, go into Claude or go into one of the other products and paste it in, because it's going to do that for you right here. You're just setting up your connection to your AI provider that you're using is basically the way this works. And as the product continues to evolve, Acumatica is going to continue to add more capabilities to the AI features, which they're already very pervasive in the system, but you're going to continue to see more features like this that drive value, help you make decisions faster, and prevent you from having to go do things in Excel to get the same types of answers. Anything to add to that, Aimee?
What I feel will be insightful is being able to have that analysis to ask quick questions. This is almost like a quick query scenario to give people quick bits of information that they may need, where it could be specific to a project or in general with all of their projects. So then when I've been in my accounting roles, you've got a CFO or a project manager or somebody coming in that just wants to know really quickly, how am I doing? What are my materials costs? Do I have unreceived POs? These are the types of things that you can put into the AI assistant and get the information. And again, whether it's project specific or across the entire environment, you're able to get those answers extremely quickly. This doesn't take very long to generate these answers. And so I find that that's going to be really helping people, because people come to you because you have information. Now you're going to be able to get it that much more quickly to them and know that it's correct. And you can see through the screens that Rob was showing you exactly where that information is coming from. So you can actually drill in to the reports.
Great point.
So
I can click right here and go right into that project.
Yep. You don't have to take the screen's word for it. There's even a hyperlink a little bit higher than that, where it's showing you that it's looking at the project cash flow report. So you could generate that report, right there, if you wanted to. Yeah. So it's not just showing you the numbers, it's actually showing you where it got it from. So that's extra validation, because, we all hear that you need to be able to double check. AI isn't perfect yet. It's getting there. So this really does make it clear and clean, so that you can feel confident that you're not just making up a number or giving incorrect information. You have that level of confidence that I would feel would be important if somebody was asking me for that information and they're making, enterprise-wide decisions based on what I tell them.
Yeah, it's based on facts and real data that's validated from an accounting standpoint, not just some willy-nilly, here's what we think it looks like.
Exactly.
Now, it's also worth noting a couple of points, and that was really good insight, really great insight. The other thing that I want to highlight here is the way Acumatica designed the AI capabilities. None of your data actually leaves Acumatica. So it doesn't go out someplace else. all the processing is done inside of Acumatica. So all of your data is protected like it always already was. They're just adding this capability into Acumatica to be able to do that for you.
A great point.
And then the other item is you've got, I mean, I'm just talking in general with the AI. You know, I run across people of all walks of life, and you have the camp where some people use AI for everything they do. They don't make a decision without using AI. So and then you have people that are like, you know, I'm just really not sure how to use it or where to begin. The great thing about the way they did this, it doesn't matter what your skill set is. You ask the question, it gives you the answer. You don't have to do anything more than that. Again, you don't have to create some elaborate spreadsheets, extract all the data out, go over, drop it in Claude or whatever tool you're using and have it give you an answer. You're not doing any of that. It's all right here. It's built in. You don't have to do anything extra to get this. And then I've got one more thing we're going to show, and then we'll talk about maybe some next steps and some other things that we didn't talk about, but we'll be happy to drill into if there's questions following this for additional content on the webinar. So one last thing I do want to show here. So I got to get set up for this one. Okay.
Yep, you're good.
One of the new features on the mobile app is the ability to do the clock in, clock out. And that's what I'm showing here. So the way this is implemented, and this is, I'm on an iPhone with the Acumatica native mobile app. I am recording time against a project task. Here, the project is the CSTR hotel, and I'm recording time against the general requirements. And just like you would expect with clock in, clock out, I could pause that. I can go start the other project, which would be down on lot 3. So I could be working between those two and getting my time recorded. That way, of course, this is all native Acumatica, so this automatically flows in. There's no syncing or anything like that's required because it's all connected real time. So this was just, I thought, kind of a neat feature that they've added that is going to be value add for anybody that's using the native Acumatica time entry. So that is that one. I will go back over here to Acumatica. And why don't we just talk through a couple of the features we didn't cover, but that were very notable that we just didn't have time to do for today. But I think the materials management was one you really liked, Aimee, and the revenue recognition automation was another one you really liked. You want to talk about those a little bit?
Yes, I can talk about them at a high level, and then we are planning to have future webinars where I'll do a deeper dive on both of those topics individually because they do merit their own time. But just in general, what's coming with 26R1 is materials management is going to be a way, like we were talking about before, when you're at the beginning of a project and you're trying to make those decisions on if you're going to buy the materials and hold them, what you may want to do there. This will give you a view of all of the materials, POs, so whether it's a subcontract or actual physical materials that you need for a project, that it simulates it all into one view. So you're able to plan and track how you're performing against that plan for that project. It will help you with those make and buy decisions. Again, cash flow, time value of money being factors that are going to be individual to a company and their specific circumstances, but that visibility will help aid in making those decisions. And one that I'm also really excited about is revenue recognition is going to be much more automated than it has been in the past. And so what's coming with 26R1 is that the actual movement, the recognition, whether you're under or overbilled, and the WIP adjustments that need to be made will be automated. At least the entries being generated. Of course, you always have a chance to review them and approve them before they are actually recorded. But that's going to be more of a holistic workflow and more automated. So again, they'll be value added without having to spend the time and digging into the spreadsheets, analyzing those spreadsheets or your WIP reports to figure out what WIP adjustments need to be made. So I think that's going to be really helpful to support the teams that have a lot of tasks that they have to do at month end and don't always have all the time that they need. This will speed up a process that can be very detail oriented. I'm excited about that and really looking forward to diving into that a little bit more deeply and demonstrating that for everyone.
Yeah, that's really a good one. I know, like you said, that's a very time consuming process. In this business, time literally is money. In which made me think about something when you were describing that. I was thinking about some of our customers and think about the journey that, they go through from whatever they were on to being an Acumatica, how much time savings they actually get. It's incredible. It's, they will tell you it is an incredible amount of savings.
That often translates to increased revenue. A lot of our customers have scaled and grown considerably after converting to Acumatica, and we're really proud to be able to support them as they do that. And you can see it as visible.
And that's, it's hard to put that in words. They do it best, because I think what it means in a lot of cases with the types of customers we work with, which are pretty good sized customers, it means they get to be home with their family. They're not working, till 10 o'clock at night trying to do whatever it is they have to do manually. They're not driving in on an icy winter day to do payroll. That's a true story, because they didn't have the ability to do it remotely because the system required them to go into the office because they didn't have any access. Or they
really intangible.
They do their month-end close. What used to take them maybe 2 weeks, they're done with it in a day or two, or maybe 3 if there was some little issues they had to work through, or projects that weren't fully set up or something. It really is incredible what the technology can do once it's fine-tuned to the way they need to work, and giving them so they can get the results that they need for their employees and for their customers. And again, I think at the end of the day, a measure of that is, are they getting to be home with their families? Because they're not tied to this thing that just requires all this manual work.
Yes, and you also brought up a great point. Acumatica is configurable, so it's not a cookie cutter system. We spend a lot of time with our clients devising the right workflows for them, what's meaningful, what they're currently doing, how to leverage their current processes with where they need to go in order to get that growth. And what's great about Acumatica is that you have the visibility to how the queries are designed, the reports and things like that. So we're able to really maximize the information flow, how quickly it needs to be there, how accurate it is, so people have the tools they need to make the right decisions. Mm-hmm. And you don't find that with a lot of ERPs. It's not that open.
That is the truth. If you've been doing this as long as we have, we've been through all of this stuff, and it just keeps getting better with Acumatica.
Agreed.
So with that, we're going to wrap up here. Before we do, I'm just going to check. This was fun. It was interesting going through some of those features. Acumatica is doing a great job. We're proud to represent Acumatica because our customers greatly benefit from this product. And if you would like to learn more about the product, or your use case is different, we will be happy to give you a personalized demo, walk you through some of these features, show you behind the scenes how they work, understand, what type of pain points you have today, and how this product can help you improve your operations going forward. Thank you, everyone, for attending today. Again, Rob Griffin and Aimee Morgan at Dominate Solutions. Visit our website at www.dominate.solutions and have a great day.